Alrighty, we are back with another tier list, which I'm very excited about. So, I have taken note of some of the comments from the last one. General rules stay the same. We're focused on a normal run with just single candle. We're not considering any of the other candles for the tier maker, just to give us kind of a basis of which we can judge all of these items on in a similar way, as opposed to trying to fit them all in depending on the candle that we're playing. And I will be attempting to keep this as objective as possible, but some details on that will change, which I'll explain in a moment. And finally, we are taking a look at these items at the point of which you would likely get them in your run, as opposed to just if the item is better than another item, which is why you may see some white items placed higher in the tier list as opposed to legendary items, because we're talking about the point at which you pick those up. So, the only detail that's changed about my objectivity to some of these items is I'm going to kind of inject a little bit more of my subjective thought, because obviously I do have some experience with the game. I spent about 400 hours playing Ring of Pain. I've played through it many of times. I've completed the many of the achievements many times over. So I feel as though I have a good gauge as to where a lot of these items fall. And I think in my first video, I gave some items credit that maybe wasn't due, or that I didn't have enough experience with that particular item in every single scenario, so I kind of just gave it props for what it should be able to do. So I'm going to speak a little bit more to exactly how I think these items play, as opposed to just placing something up on the tier, higher on the tier list, because I think it should be there. It'll make sense as we get into it. But anyways, first item is a banger. So we've got Chestplate. So Chestplate reads, reduce explode damage taken by 2, which honestly, I oftentimes forget that it does. This item is just great all the time. I pretty much pick it up on every single run. Speed is a easy dump stat. 3 defense is huge, regardless of the difficulty in the early game. And then I forget about the passive, which is reducing that explode damage taken by 2, which is also enormous. So especially if you have a tough time dealing with fire beads, or if you just find yourself pinched, reducing that damage by 2 on normal fire beads will drop that damage from 4 to 2, and it'll drop the lowest tier of fire hives from 6 to 4. So overall, it can save you a run, basically just based off of that passive. So I'll probably put that at A. Stats are good. I don't really care about speed, and the passive also is just an added bonus. So definitely pretty solid. So next we have Dasher's Cloak. Dasher's Cloak is an item I don't pick up much. I'm gonna be placing these up here just so I can click on my other screen. Doesn't necessarily mean it's B yet, just so we can talk about it. So the passive reads +4 speed if you have 4 or fewer items equipped. Now, I saw some conversation in the last video about how I analyze basically the benefits that you can get on some of these items that have a quantity of item requirement being 4 or fewer items for this particular item. So I'll be a little bit more careful with that. However, I still think that Dasher's Cloak is kind of meh at best. I think I'm going to put it at C for now. 1 attack is fine. This is like okay as like a supplementary item. The 10 crit could be good, but the problem is you don't have a lot of attack at this point. So a little bit of crit chance doesn't do a whole lot for you, because if you're only hitting for 2, critting for 4 on a 10% chance probably isn't going to make or break most runs. The +4 speed, you'll get that with 4 or fewer items, so it's only going to affect you in your first 2 rooms. And speed, that 4 speed can be nice early on, but it's not something you like necessarily need to shoot for. Like if I see a Dasher's Cloak, that's not my first thought. So I'd say this probably sits in C, maybe B, but I don't think this item is very great in comparison to a lot of the other stuff that you can pick up. All right. Porous Shell is our next white chest piece here. Now, Porous Shell is interesting. I've actually been using this a little bit more recently. I have always had a tough time picking up items that reduce your health in the early game, because health is pretty important early on. But I've started to see a bit more value in this item because of the passive, which I never really gave enough credit. So the passive reads +1 poison damage resistance. So basically, if something were to inflict 2 poison on you, you would resist 1 of those points of poison, so they'd only apply 1. So for Viscid ones, this basically makes them non-poisonous creatures. And then for a lot of other poisonous creatures or monsters, they generally have between 2 and 3 points of poison. So reducing that down to 1 or 2 is pretty big. And for a free item, in the early game, it's not as impactful, but if you take this into like the early mid, you can definitely feel the benefits of this. And then if we take a look at the stats, 1 defense feels great, -1 health doesn't feel so great, but you do get a little bit of the clarity. So if you have nothing that's dragging you down in your clarity, this can kind of supplement for the lack of health with the extra healing. And also the lack of health kind of doubles over with the poison resistance if you happen to run into a lot of poison enemies. So I think I'm probably going to put this at B for now. I think it's a pretty solid item. Alrighty, Ritual Garment. So Ritual Garment is an item that, again, I sometimes have some trouble picking up because of the health reduction on it, but I do think it's pretty decent. So you get 1 attack, which, again, just like Dash's Cloak, feels fine. It's not like something I'm dying for early on. The -2 HP really hurts, but the pretty sizable amount of clarity that you get from it certainly feels like it makes up for the lack of health. Because with 4 clarity, you're getting a couple extra points on all of your potions. So that feels pretty solid. The passive reads deal 1 damage to a random creature 1 hit. Since it's just 1 damage, this is generally ticking things down in the room as opposed to putting you in a situation where, you attack an enemy and get hit with a fire hive next to you and the fire hive detonates because you did enough damage to kill it. It won't do that. You'll be able to see that coming because it's only ticking those enemies down by 1. So the passive is definitely nice. It can soften up some enemies that you may not have been able to kill otherwise. But the negative health definitely hurts. But I think overall, again, this item kind of falls in B. I would probably be picking this up over a Dasher's Cloak. And again, that just might be a personal preference, but like I said, I'm going to inject a little bit more of that into this because I want to also pay attention to, what am I picking up? Why would I tell you to pick something up that I'm not picking up? Scale Top. Scale Top is a kind of a volatile item for me. I either immediately pick this item up or don't even look at it. Which probably also lands it in kind of the B category. I feel like a lot of, with bodies in the white, in the common rarity, a lot of them are middle of the line, and then there's ones that are better and ones that are worse. But anyways, Scale Top. +2 defense with another freeze item equipped. If I have a freeze item, this is an automatic pickup. It would be A. If I don't have a freeze item equipped, it's pretty much as useful as Dasher's Cloak. Like, the extra speed is fine, the 1 HP, alright, but I don't really care about this item. So it'll probably land in B for me because I picked this up about 50% of the time, depending on whether I have a freeze item or not. Freeze items count whether it's a book, a scroll, a jar that's empty. So, for example, volatile crystals, the ice shards, that'll freeze enemies. Even if it's completely empty, you'll still benefit from getting 2 defense from this item. So if you can proc the passive, you're getting 2 defense, 1 health, and speed. Feels great all around. Since it's not as reliable as Chestplate, that's why I would put it at B. And our final common item is going to be our Shrouded Leather. This item is kind of like, what was it from the last Skullcap, from the last tier list, but a little bit better. So it's an item that I never really I never like picking up, but it's pretty good for what it does. So you get 1 attack, 1 defense, 1 health. Health and defense in combination, as we talked about in the first video, are always going to be a great synergy. You need both of those stats together. Apart, they're not as effective. So that's pretty solid. The 1 attack is also nice to get all on the same item. And then the passive is +5% stealth chance. So in this particular case, since we are talking about normal candle, that's actually the passive is pretty impactful. That bumps you up to 25% chance to stealth, which, since playing some more single candle recently, I've noticed that actually happen. It feels like it happens an impactful amount of times. And the stats are pretty solid. So I'm actually tempted to put this above our other B tier items here, because unless I have an ice item, I'm taking shrouded leather most of the time over both of these other options. I feel like arguments could be made either way, whether this would be A or B. But generally, I think I use shrouded leather more than I use these other two, since they have kind of caveats to them, like taking away the health and whatnot, and, you know, needing to wait until you approach poisonous enemies for poisonous shell, things of that nature. All right, so into our uncommon or our rare chest plates, starting with Living Corset. Living Corset is an item that I have loved forever. It's been around for a really long time, and it just does what it does well. Basically, this item is centered around healing. Every single thing that it does impacts your healing, right? So you get 3 health, so that's just more max HP in general. You get 1 clarity, which is great, you know, whatever. You get a point of clarity if that ticks you into positive or above negative, you know, above 0, basically. You're going to get more benefits from your potions. And then the passive is heal 2 on kill. And I mean, I guess just because of its stats, it's at a lower rarity than Living Helmet, which is actually purple and has the same passive, which arguably has better stats as well. But like I said, this is all about keeping you alive. So as long as you're able to kill the enemy with a direct attack, as opposed to something like poison, you're going to benefit from the passive. And that passive is pretty impactful. That will keep you, if you have no other way of healing, and maybe even negative clarity, that'll keep you alive. Yeah, so there's no downsides to Living Corset. So I think I'm gonna put, man, I don't even know if there's gonna be an S tier in this list. I'm a little stuck here. All right, I think I'm gonna put that at A for now. Very, very good item. All right, Onion Suit. Onion Suit is an item that I pick up often, but not always. Mainly because we're picking this up in the early to mid game, and it reduces your attack, which once you're getting into your mid game is usually when you start worrying about attack. So the passive reads deal 4 damage to a random creature after attack, which is definitely nice, but that comes with its own drawbacks as well. So we have -1 attack that's made up for with the passive. We have +4 defense, which does feel good, but from the early to mid game, we should have a decent amount of defense as it is. So my focus is going to be shifting towards attack. And then the -to speed. Again, I'm just not a big speed advocate. I think the other stats generally are better. So, you know, that's kind of a no point. I'm not going to talk too much about that. But the deal 4 damage to random creature after attack. So this is a random strike of 4 non-mitigatable damage. So it just does 4 damage regardless of defense. The negative to that is that I have died many of times to this random damage hitting an explosive enemy that is right next to me, right? So after attacking, it strikes a fire hive or it strikes a fire bead that is also in one of the 2 front cards in front of me, detonates, and either I die immediately or, you know, that extra damage that I'm taking there leads me to die later on. So this definitely has some drawbacks, but it is very potent. If you are hurting for defense, and maybe you have some attack, that 4 damage can be all you need to carry your attack into the thicker portion of the mid game. So I'm probably going to leave that at B, because it's kind of a 50-50 for me. Sometimes I'll pick this up, sometimes I'll just leave it B. Alrighty, Spike Suit. So these spiked items are something I would really want to love, but I just find it so hard. Kind of for a similar reason to Onion Suit. So the stats are great. +2 health, +2 defense. In the mid game, if we're just talking straight defense, you shouldn't need a ton of it because you should have built a little bit of it up already through your stat boosts and the initial items that you picked up. But this item giving defense and health means that you're double dipping basically on your tankiness, right? And the fact that it's 2 points in both makes it hard not to pick up this item. The problem with this item is that the passive reads reflect 3 damage when hit, which again will kill your lowest tier normal fire hives and fire beads. So this item kind of has that stand and fight mentality where it restricts your movement if you want to avoid taking explosive damage. So I find this item really hard to pick up, but this one I have tested a fair bit, and I do believe it's a solid item. I don't think it's C tier. I do think it's legitimately a B tier item. If you build around Reflect, like if you get this with like a forceful pair of gloves so you can move those explosive enemies around, it can be, excuse me, it can be very potent, but I think it causes problems more often than I benefit from the passive, but the stats are so good that that's why it lands in B. All right, and our last uncommon or rare item being Vitality Robes. Vitality Robes is pretty awesome. Out of all of the items that give you HP through their passive, this one has, I think, like the lowest entry fee, we'll say. So the passive reads +1 max health whenever you equip an item. That includes scrolls as well. And then, of course, any other item that you equip on your character. So this adds up huge over time. Since you're getting this in the early to mid, you're going to get back those 2 points of health almost immediately because you're probably picking up a lot of items. Your scrolls are going to give you a ton of HP because you're constantly swapping out scrolls. So actually, this might be our first S tier body, because I will pretty much pick this up. I'll pick this up over Living Corset sometimes because I know I'm getting that extra HP, but this is playing for the long game. Whereas if I need healing straight away, Living Corset is going to be something that I'm searching after. But Vitality Robes, being that it has basically an unlimited amount of procs, it's just, I guess, limited to however many items you can pick up. If you have decent economy, or if you're just finding a lot of scrolls, this becomes really, really potent. So, Vitality Robes for a blue item, also potentially free. You really can't go wrong. All right, so into our epic items. So we have Amorphous Mass. Amorphous Mass is one of the items that I was referring to at the beginning of the video, where like I would generally say, or I would think to myself, this item sounds really good, so it should go A. But in practical use, I think it's lower. I think it's probably B. And here's why. So the passive reads take half damage from melee attacks. That is a really strong passive. Like for fighting the owl, it's strong. For fighting amalgam, it's strong. If you're lacking on, some of your stats, it can be really strong. It can help you kind of pull through that mid to late and get into that deep late game. But the biggest problem with this is that you're giving up the defense. So if you are really in need of taking half damage from melee attacks, that's probably because you don't have a lot of health or defense, or both. So reducing our defense, but giving us that passive that should be benefiting us defensively, is kind of a mixed bag with this item. You also lose the speed, which makes sense regarding like the art of the item and the name of the item, but it doesn't seem super consistent with, like, for instance, Scale Top or even Chestplate, right? Where Scale Top, I'm not getting guaranteed defense and I'm getting speed, whereas with Chestplate, I'm getting guaranteed defense and I'm losing speed. So Amorphous Mass, you know what? I might drop that down to C for now, because I almost never pick this item up unless I have way too many points of defense and it's way into the late game, or for a specific build. Like if you have like a low HP build or something like that, this could be particularly useful. But I almost never pick this up. I don't think it's very good, especially in comparison to the other epic bodies. All right, on to the next one, Chained Iron. Chained Iron is another item that I'm often kind of split on. This item is going to be better for you if you're newer to the game, but it's also going to be tough for you to use if you're newer to the game. So we'll run through it real quick. 2 defense, fantastic. -2 speed, the jury's out. I don't really care. -4 health, that hurts a lot, especially if this is the first mid-game item you're getting, or mid to late game item you're getting. -4 HP hurts, and that is kind of, I think, my main reason to feel that this item isn't great, because the passive benefits situations where maybe you have a tough time dealing with fire beads or poison beads. We'll read through that now. So fire beads and poison beads do not move towards you, so they're stuck in place, right? They basically sit on the field as any other card would, waiting for you to approach them as opposed to hunting you down. So you don't really need this item, or this item's passive, once you learn how to better move around fire beads in the ring in a way that's most effective and efficient, in terms of avoiding damage. So the passive's like a convenience as opposed to an enhancement to your build. And the fact that you lose 4 health when you could just play, a little bit differently and keep that health and find defense elsewhere, makes me feel like this item just doesn't hold a lot of value for me personally, and I think for most builds in general. Like the 2 defense for 6 points of negative stats just doesn't feel super great. So I think I'm going to also put that in C. I kind of view these on a similar plane. Alrighty, Shrouded Leather. Oh, nope, not Shrouded Leather. Dark Leather. The Shroudier Leather. So, Dark Leather is an interesting item. There's one thing I think I'd like to see changed on this item to make it better than it is, but I think it's kind of middle of the line. It's kind of a placeholder. So, Dark Leather gives 5 crit chance, 10% dodge chance, and the passive reads plus 10% stealth chance, which honestly are pretty good stats. Like, you get 20%, I guess, like a layering of 20% in total amount of percentage. I don't know why I put it that way, but like the 10% chance to dodge and the 10% stealth chance both have a chance to proc when passing creatures. So that's super nice. You get the 10% chance to dodge when you're attacking, which is also very nice. The only thing I would like to see on this item to make it a little more enticing maybe to pick up would be like a point of 2 of speed or 10% crit. And the reason for that is the speed would feed into the stealth chance and dodge chance because you build those secondary stats through speed. And the 10% crit chance, so that this is just a little bit more impactful across the board. Because crit chance is already kind of hard to build unless you just like get an item that automatically gives you a ton of it. Since negative clarity is really popular and the crit chance stat is built through clarity. So if this had 10% across the board, it would be more enticing, but oftentimes I kind of overlook this and I'll look for a different purple just because there's so many other items in these purple chests that could give you a lot of benefit, and this kind of feels like it falls short. But if I have nothing in this slot, I can't reroll again. It doesn't hurt to pick this item up. If it's an empty slot, sure, let me have it. All right, Extra Onion Suit. So, Extra Onion Suit is it basically just an upgraded version of Onion Suit, right? We have double the negative attack, we have 1.5 times the amount of defense, and we have double the negative speed. So -2 attack, 6 defense, -4 speed. This kind of feels, I feel like its value doesn't change a whole lot, despite it being twice as effective as Extra Onion Suit. So the passive reads deal 8 damage to random creature after attack, which is kind of weird. Like, I normally don't compare 2 items of the same rarity together, but the problems still remain, right? The only difference about Extra Onion Suit is since you can pick it up later in the game, you can feel more willing to give up the 2 points of defense for double the damage on the passive. And this can also kill things besides just your fire beads and fire hives, which gives it some more value. I might push this up because I'll generally take extra onion suit over something like dark leather. In general, I think extra onion suit is a pretty good item. It does have pretty much the same drawbacks as onion suit, but you definitely feel the impact of extra onion suit more. And 6 defense can be enough defense to make you feel like you don't have to build anymore. So being in a position where you can give up some more attack because you're later in the game and getting a bunch of defense that might set you for the run for defense, I would say I'll probably put this at A. And 8 damage is no joke. That'll kill Viscid Twin in 2 shots. That'll kill, obviously, your Fire Hives and your Fire Beads. It'll kill Rot Hounds. It'll kill all sorts of different enemies. It can kill some of your enemies that don't have, or that have intimidation effects. It won't kill your Constrictors. I can't remember Skittering Frights. It'll kill your Skittering Frights on normal. So it's definitely pretty solid. Alrighty, Fur Coat. Fur Coat is something that I used to dog on pretty hard, but now I think it's actually pretty good. Basically because negative clarity is a thing. It has no passive, so we're just looking at stats. So health and defense, and then 4 health and defense, 4 speed, and then -4 clarity. At this point in the game, well, actually I shouldn't say that because you can pick this up whenever, right? If you find Sam in the companions room. But I guess we're going to judge it based off of our rules in the beginning. If we want to look at this item as a mid to late game item, it's really solid. It's giving you a ton of survivability, plus the extra speed is just a bonus. And then the negative clarity, you should know by the mid to late game if you are going or need positive clarity. So since you're always given a choice to pick this item up for basically for free, it's going to be subjective to your situation, but I think overall it's a pretty good item. You can pick this up really early in a run, which I think only increases the value. It not having a passive makes it feel a little less impactful than some other items, but the stats are just so good that it really does just feel great. And in reality, maybe I should also tone that back a bit. Like, you can pick this item up early. You could get this item on literally room 2 if you get lucky. So getting all of these stats on room 2 feels incredible. So I'll probably put it at A. I basically always pick this up unless I need clarity for whatever reason. Or I guess if I have a better chest, but at this point, I mean, a better chest would have to be significantly better. So yeah, I would say that probably sits at A. All right, Gluttony, one of my favorite chest pieces. So Gluttony gives you 3 attack, 5 clarity, and +5 defense when over half health. So to me, this item feels bloated. No pun intended. It has so many stats, like 13 points of stats with a reasonable requirement is kind of crazy. I would arguably put this probably as our first S tier epic body. So, and the reason for that is its passive fee. It's like self-propelling, right? It's like it's a perpetual loop where you need to stay above half health to benefit from the passive, but the passive also makes you tankier. So if you have even 20 health, it's a lot easier to stay above 10 health when you have another 10 or another 5 defense. Plus you're getting clarity, which is helping you heal more. You're getting attack, which is helping you kill faster. This item just gives you everything you want. And honestly, when I pick it up, I just kind of see it with 5 defense. I don't even think about the passive because it just makes that item pickup, like the item pickup itself is that impactful. That it always feels good to grab. All right, so next one, Juggernaut. Juggernaut's kind of a fun item. I don't think I give items with piercing damage reduction enough credit because I really love Juggernaut. I generally won't pick up Juggernaut over Gluttony. So it would kind of be like in between here. It would be like A+, S-, because I think it probably is better than like extra onion suit and maybe not fur coat. Excuse me. I don't know. It's kind of in between there. But anyways, the passive reads reduce piercing damage taken by 1. So piercing damage is the damage that you can't parry. So like when you have a parry chance, right? If it's say it's a 25% parry chance for 2 damage, Juggernaut would reduce that to a 25% chance to parry 1 damage. So again, this item's stats and passive both mix very well, because you're getting greater parry chance with the extra defense, plus you're getting reduced piercing damage if you do fail that parry. So overall, it's a fantastic item. I'm almost tempted to put it S, just because it really is just a solid pickup, basically whenever. I might leave that up there for now, honestly, because compared to some of the other items in its class and even above it, it holds up better than a lot of these items. So next item is Molten. Molten kind of falls into a weird spot with some of the new items that give you benefits based on sets. But this one's kind of like, it's not easily identifiable, I feel like, in the midst of like running through a run, how much you're really going to benefit from it. So the passive reads, reduce explode damage taken by 1 per diviner item. Explosions deal plus 33% damage. So I know there was some discussion in the Discord about this item just recently, actually, being that I think it reduces the explode damage before the explosive damage is increased, which I would have to take another look at. But regardless, if we're working off the same logic that we used for Iron Grinder in the last video, you probably have on average 2 to 3 diviner items in your set. You may have none, you may have more. But working off of, 2 to 3, that would be reducing explosive damage by 2 to 3, which we already get with Chestplate. So on average, not super impactful in that way. And the explosives deal more damage. Now, that can be really great, right? Like if you want if you're getting a lot of damage from your explosives, then getting that extra damage, added on to their explosive effects, can help a lot. Also with a Hungry Sun build, this is great. What else? If you have Fire Dance, where explosives are dealing extra damage if you have so few items, you can do some fun stuff with this item. But the problem kind of comes, I think, with its lack of like a heavily impactful. It's like in between Chestplate and Gilded Chestplate, but it also just reduces your attack, right? Because Gilded Chestplate, where's that at? Gilded Chestplate gives you a bunch of defense and clarity for healing. Chestplate gives you a bunch of defense, and then this gives you defense and health, but also reduces your attack, which I think the reduction of attack is really what is the kind of the kicker for me. The thing that makes me really not enjoy this item a whole lot. I'm probably picking up Molten over Chained Iron because I'm more willing to give up 2 attack than I am for health in a lot of cases, and you're getting a ton more health and a little bit more defense than you are Chained Iron, so this probably lands in B. I don't like this item a whole lot, but it does have its applications. And if we're just looking at it strictly for stats, if I have no other choice, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm always willing to give up a little bit of attack if I think I'll survive. All right. Possessed Robe, our last epic body. So, Possessed Robe gives you -3 health, -3 clarity, plus 20% dodge, and it's a passive reads, dodge chance inflicts 5 curse damage to the creature dodged. This is like the epitome of, it's like the quintessential secondary stat item. It's giving you minus health, which just hurts, right? It's giving you minus clarity, which can be either way. That could be good or bad, but it's also affecting your secondary stats. And then it gives you 20% dodge, which is great. And then it's passive, right? On dodge chance, which is good. That's giving you dodge. On dodge, inflicts 5 curse damage to the creature dodge, which is fine, again, but it's kind of a secondary form of damage, again, that can't kill. It is unmitigated, which is nice, but in most cases, I kind of feel similarly to Possessed Robe as I do like Amorphous Mass. Like, it's taken away a bunch of stats. The dodge can be really nice, but it's not usually something I'm relying on. And the passive, it's a 20% chance, if this is the only dodge I have, right, to do some damage that can't kill. So really not something that I'm fiending for ever too much, or too often, I should say. So not my favorite. Could be better, could be worse. Maybe with some changing of some of these stats, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to too many people right out the gate. It's kind of whatever. Oh, I said that was the last one. We have one more. Summoned Robe. My bad. So last epic body. Taking a look at Summoned Robe. So Summoned Robe gives you 2 attack, -4 HP, 2 clarity. And the passive reads, after spell use, gain 10 defense for 1 turn. To be honest, I never use this item. This item could be never pick up tier. It could be S tier. I'm going to base it off of what I kind of understand about Ring of Pain and how this interacts. I don't think it's very good. Getting the attack, okay, great. Losing the health, unless I'm building a lot of health, losing 4 health hurts pretty bad. And then 2 clarity is kind of a non-factor, like it's kind of whatever. I might want that, I might not. So it's tough to know whether that's going to benefit me or not. And then the passive being that it gives me 10 defense off of a spell use, gives it an internal cooldown of the cooldown of my book, or if I have a spell or a scroll, I can, obviously increase how often this is happening. I could see this having value, but it's like I'm giving up some of my tankiness for conditional tankiness. So I'm probably going to put that again in C, because I'll only really pick this up if I have a lot of health and I need attack. That's basically what I'm thinking anytime I pick this up. 10 defense can be really impactful, but again, you only get it for 1 turn. So it's like you need to use another item to make this item work, and you get a passive for 1 turn that may not be the turn that you need it for. So you know what? I'm actually dropping this. I'm putting that in a D tier. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. I don't think it's very good. I never pick it up, so I'm going to trust my gut. Alrighty, on to our legendary items. So our first one being Conduit. This one I've actually had some time to experiment with since the first time I tried recording this particular tier list. I don't think this item is very good. This item is good for the stats. Well, I guess for a stat. It gives you 4 defense, -5 speed. I don't care much about speed, so it's kind of whatever. But the passive, after spell use, deal 30 soul damage to a random creature. That will basically kill most creatures at any point in your run on spell use, which is honestly quite nice. Like, it sounds good. This is one of those items I'm like, it could probably be like A or S, like I don't really use it a whole lot. But now that I've used it, I think this item kind of stinks. The random damage is nice on some of these mid-game items because you're putting your build together, and sometimes you need some of those helping hands, right, to get to the end game build that you're looking for. With Conduit being a legendary item and costing 160 souls, and really only giving you defense, to have 30 random damage just dropping on an enemy that could potentially kill me, because now we're in the range of being able to kill the huge fire beads and the upgraded fire hives, this could be a run ender. And I have no influence really over where that damage is landing, so it's not very reliable for like trying to work down an enemy that I'm trying to kill. It's not a great item. Honestly, it's good for the 4 defense. That's basically the only reason I pick it up. But in reality, if I have a fur coat, I might keep the fur coat over this. If I have a scale top with another ice item, I might keep that over this. I mean, I don't think Conduit's very good. I'm probably going to put it at C for now. It's okay. Yeah, I feel better about it than I do Summon Robe, but I don't think it's good. Alrighty. Next one, Devour. So this is an item that I know gets a lot of people riled up. I shouldn't say that. It's an item that I know has like people on both sides. And I've kind of, in my experience, I can definitely subscribe to one more than the other. I don't think Devour is very good. I basically never pick it up. Am I willing to put it in D tier? I think so. So the reason this item kind of is rough around the edges, right? So you're losing 3 attack and 3 defense. So you're losing offense and defense. You're gaining health. 6 health. That's a lot of health. That's almost as much as some of your graded, your highest health providing items in the game, like endurance, stacked plate, things like that. But the passive is where this item kind of goes wrong. So you gain 1+1 stat of the creature's highest stat that you kill every 3 kills. So this item takes a little min-maxing to use. The problem being, especially if we're talking about a normal run, generally the highest stat that a creature has is its health. So I can only assume when creating this item, the intention was we're going to take away attack, we're going to take away defense with the thought that you can earn those stats back plus some as the run goes on. But it's every 3 turns, or excuse me, every 3 kills, and their other stats need to be higher than their health, which just isn't super common. Things that have really low health generally have pretty low defense and pretty low attack. Things that have higher health generally have higher defense and attack, but their health tends to still outweigh those other stats. So this is just giving you a bunch of health, and especially in today's state of the game, there's a lot of ways to come by decent amounts of health, even just looking at vitality robes. So why is there any reason to give up all these stats? So I think it's pretty trash. Could be F tier. I'm not going to put it in the absolute dumpster because it's definitely not in the same plane as Tiny Crown that we put there last time, but it's not good. Feathered Friend. I love this item. Feathered Friend gives you +2 attack, +2 defense, -4 speed. Overall, stats are pretty solid. Again, I don't really care about speed too much, so I'm good for the attack and defense. And the passive reads, chests are free to open, gain no souls on kill. So that has a positive and a negative to it, right? You can open up all the chests for the rest of the run without having to pay anything, which is great, but you're getting no souls on kill, which means your opportunity to reroll is going to diminish pretty heavily, pretty quickly. You're going to run out of souls pretty fast unless you have a different way to generate souls. So if we're looking at this item in a vacuum, I do think it's really solid. If you have other ways of influencing whether you can reroll your chests or get more items out of chests, I can't remember the name of the charm now, but the generosity, that gives you another choice out of a chest. This item gets insane. Or if you have another way to, like I said, collect souls, then this item just gets better than it already is. I would say it's probably A tier, because not gaining souls can really cause you some problems if you're getting bad rolls. So there's a little bit of RNG to it, but it's got good stats. The passive is great in a lot of cases, so I'd say it probably lands pretty comfortably at A. Alrighty, Gilded Chestplate. So where are we here? I'm looking for it on my... There we go. All right, Gilded Chestplate. Gilded Chestplate's a pretty solid item. Honestly, I've been using it a lot more recently, and the passive feels very impactful. Actually, the passive of Gilded Chestplate is what made me realize how valuable Chestplate is. So the passive reads, take half damage from explosions. So in your late to mid game, you can start just attacking explosive creatures without being worried about your health. If you're attacking normal fire beads, you're taking 1 damage. Oh, excuse me, 2 damage. If you're attacking fire hives, like the non-upgraded fire hives, I think you're taking 3 damage. And then you can even attack the huge fire beads for 10 damage, which in a pinch can save your life. So Gilded Chestplate is something that I've been, like I said, experimenting with a bit more recently. I do really enjoy it. I'd probably put it at A as well. Again, I don't care about the speed too much. The defense is nice. I'd almost like to see it at 5 points since Chestplate gives you so much. But I guess that's made up with the clarity, which is nice if you have a little bit built. Gives you some extra healing. So, not bad overall. Alrighty, Gripping Mantle. So, Gripping Mantle is an item that I don't use a whole lot, but I've definitely given it its fair share of tries. And it's very middle of the line to me. So, we're talking about in a vacuum. So, without other items that... because I can't predict what build you're going to end up with after picking up this item, right? If you have other items that combine with ensnare effects, like Vine Grip Gloves that give you guaranteed crit after ensnare or on ensnared creatures, this item gets some more value. But it's a 30% chance to ensnare on attack, and it gives you +3 defense, -3 speed, +5 clarity. So, how do I feel about this? The thing that's interesting about this is that it's actually giving you way more tankiness than what it reads, because Ensnare reduces the enemy's attack, I believe, by 10. So it gives you 3 defense, but you also have a 30% chance to take much, much reduced damage or have a much increased parry chance on an enemy if you happen to ensnare them, right? But in the end game, it just doesn't feel like it really does it for me, because I'm either like usually one-shotting an enemy, or I have like effective ways to kill enemies. And I should have a decent amount of tankiness built up by that point. So the 30% chance to potentially be really tanky for one creature is kind of like, I just don't really care all that much. It's nice within the snare builds. I feel like it's kind of a niche item. The stats are okay on it, so I think it falls pretty comfortably at B. Alrighty, our last two, which are arguably some of my favorite and least favorite. So starting with Immovable Object. Immovable Object, I don't use much because I don't like temporary stats. That's across the board, whether it's Switchblade, Immovable Object. There's another one that I'm missing right now. Oh, not Bone Pearls, Choker. Any items that give you temporary stats, I kind of gloss over them because I don't like the inconsistency of gaining and losing stats. However, there is definitely strength in this item. So Immovable Object is another stand and fight kind of item. So it benefits those builds that are able to stay in the same spot and continuously attack. Because every time you get hit, you gain 3 defense until you move next. So if you could just sit and keep attacking, you're going to gain more and more and more defense, which kind of has its own upper limit, because once you gain enough defense and you're 80%, you're parrying everything at 80%, you're not going to get a whole lot more defense out of this, which I guess it means it's doing its job, because you don't need a whole lot more defense if you're parrying everything for 80%. The only problem is I'd rather just have Gilded Chestplate. Like, I'd rather just get more defense right out the gate and have a passive that I don't need to fit some sort of requirement for. I'm sure there's plenty of builds where this really can feel great, but it's just not something that I ever get excited about. I think I like it more than Conduit, but it's just a boring item to me, I guess, is kind of the bottom line there. Alrighty, and our last item, Stacked Plate. I love Stacked Plate. Any item that gives you plus whatever percentage of a current stat always feels really good. So I guess with the asterisk and Crown of Clarity, sometimes that feels really bad. Oh, excuse me. But anyways, Stacked Plate. -4 speed, +8 health, and +1/3 extra defense. So exactly what I was saying about some of these items, like Shrouded Leather, Scale Top, Spike Suit. I was saying how getting defense and health feels amazing. This is that concept, right? You get 8 health, and then you get 1/3 extra defense of your current defense and any defense you pick up into the future, right? So you pick up 3 points of defense, you're actually getting 4. If you already have 30 defense, you actually are bumping up to 40. that mixed with a massive injection of health into your health pool means you don't even need to worry about speed. So the speed is, we don't even got to think twice about it. Stack plate definitely goes S tier for me. I pretty much pick this up all the time unless I have like particularly low defense. If I'm sitting at like 17, 18 points, then I might look for something like a different gold item that would benefit me. But if I want a gold body specifically for survivability, stack plate is going to be my go-to. So that is our body tier list. I feel definitely pretty confident about this. Thank you so much for your guys' feedback in the first video. It made me kind of rethink how I wanted to address some of these items. And I feel more confident in where I'm placing a lot of these now because I'm being a little bit more subjective while adding constructive kind of objective logic to why I think some of those things. So if you guys do enjoy, definitely be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think of some of the items, where they're at, where you would place other items if you don't agree. Anything you want to share, feel free. But we will catch you in the next one, and have a good one.